Okay, Wednesday edition of the After Show. Got Weekend Justice with you. Wink over here on the East Coast.
And Justice on the West Coast of the contiguous United States of America. It is Wednesday's Child is full of whoa, Nelly Wednesdays.
Yeah. Okay.
And, we just got everything happening. And it's a Wednesday. Hey, Wink, how are you doing on this Wednesday?
Not bad so far, not bad. 79 degrees out there. It's going up to about 82, 83, so it's going to be a repeat of yesterday pretty much, and we'll take it. Not bad at all out there. Mind to get in the chat, just go to netrootsradio.com, scroll down the bottom of the page, and on the right-hand side of the bottom of the page, there is a link to the chat, so click that, join us there.
And the Contribute Donate buttons are deftly located to the leftish of the chat room link.
Yeah.
For your perusal and possible actual use. It does keep the lights blinking here. At least my modem is still, it's blinking the way it's supposed to.
Yep.
Ooh, thank you for that. After Show podcast can be had also shortly after the end of this show by way of Spreaker. Wink will post what we call the raw data file. And then he'll clean that up, and later on in the day, you'll get the perfected daily file, the PDF, and that'll be coming by way of Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, TuneIn. I suggest stay away from the one that has the little heart.
Yeah.
But if you're stuck, you're stuck. I mean, I don't blame you. I'm not going to judge you. But,
True.
If you can, we hate iHeart. Okay.
Here we do.
And we're not even proponents of the concept of hate. But
Right.
there's some things that just push you over the edge. Okay, so here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, it is currently, here, let me scroll up just a tad here. Oh, it's 58 degrees. And we are slated to go to a high of 91, which is nearly the same as yesterday. And we have had a change in our forecast beginning late Saturday and through Sunday and the early part of next week. We were going to be bumping, if not into, 3-digit temperature. But now that's been revised. And the forecast now is to actually have a quite pleasant weekend, just in the upper 80s and low 90s. I got to tell you, compared to the 3-digit one.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yep.
Upper 80s, low 90s, I'll go for that.
Yep.
We will have lows in the low 60s overnight, possibly the high 50s, but it's pretty warm in the little microclimate I'm at. Winds will be in their normal today out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then this evening, as usual, they will be out of the northwest, 5 to 10 miles an hour. I got to tell you, there are some gusts, though, that come through that are a tad stiffer than that. Wink.
Yep.
God. I got to get on this. I've been so busy doing other stuff, and I've had this issue with, what I call my big old mastoid muscles, by your neck and your shoulder from overdoing it. I should have used a backhoe to plant the trees. Don't ask me why I thought I could go out there and just do it by myself with a shovel and a Maddox, like normal.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I didn't do the digging bar. I thought if I did the digging bar, that would be overdoing it. Boy, if I'd use a digging bar, who knows? You might have to carry the show either yourself or put up best ofs.
You might have been, laid up for a day or two. That's for sure.
Day or two? Are you kidding me? A month? I'm serious.
Yeah.
I mean, this muscle twinge, which is it's quite uncomfortable. It's going on now for 4 days. There was a time overnight where I thought, God, do I have meningitis? Because your muscles tightening up in your neck and having a bad headache. That's kind of a sign. So I took my temperature. Nope. Wasn't even anywhere close to even having mononucleosis.
There you go.
And I was thinking, I haven't kissed anything or anyone in a long time. Well, actually, I take that back. I'm a playboy. Okay, I'm a player. Come on.
Yeah.
Kiss and get kissed all the time. Yeah. So I was just thinking, I can't assign it to, social contact. And it is indeed, Wink, getting old, overdoing it with physicality, which I'm fairly physical every day anyway. Okay. Auger. I'll get an auger.
Yeah.
One of those power
That'll
augers, you know. Just dig the holes with that from now on.
Yep.
I was worried about my bad knees and my bad ankles, you know, digging with the shovel. So, go figure. We knew it was going to be up in, you know, my upper shoulder areas.
Right.
Hey, weather from around the world is brought to you by People's Weather Stations from around the world. And it looks like right now, London, England is 69 degrees and mostly cloudy. Of course, all of these temperatures are in Fahrenheit because we are Americans, aren't we?
Yeah.
Paris is 82 and clear, and they remain in their severe weather advisory, which this time of year are severe thunder and lightning storms. Rome is 82 and clear. Kiev is 81 and clear. Kabul is 85 and clear. Getting ready for the drone parades for the little wedding processions. How many uses of a drone do you get before the circuitry kind of like they gotta, put in a new new motherboard? Is that how it works with those ones?
I would say so, yeah. Okay. And it wouldn't take too long to switch one out.
I bet you, in time, Amazon will be able to deliver the bombs cheaper.
Oh yeah.
Because they'll have distribution centers a lot closer, and a revolving labor force. They come and go.
Just contract it out.
Well, you get people working on this stuff, and then they go home and try to get a bite to eat. Next thing you know, they're dead.
Yeah.
Well, they were living next. They were living next to a country that has a bunch of terrorists. So everybody's guilty by association now, buddy. Let's see. Hong Kong is 77 and clear. Tokyo is 81 and mostly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 53 and clear. San Francisco, California is 53 and mostly cloudy. And New York is 88 and clear. Ooh, thank God. Yes. Oh, I missed. You're going to be holding steady in your
we're pretty
weather
much 79, 80,
or?
81, 82 today.
Much more comfortable
yep.
than in
Not bad at all.
The Big Apple.
Yeah.
Well. What can we say anymore, Mike? I mean, now we find out that there was like an hour-long conversation between Vlad and Don.
Oh, yeah.
At a meeting with spouses and other world leaders, and they just went off to a corner and, we didn't have a translator there, so we have no record of it, conveniently. Right?
Yeah.
No translator, for our side.
Right.
For an hour. And the other world leaders going, what the hell? And then, and I got to say, Ari Melber, come on, MSNBC. You said Ari Melber was taking over Greta's spot. I thought it was going to be like, over the weekend. We're going on 3 weeks now. Get on it. But Ari was filling in yesterday for Chris Hayes. And he did have Bernie on. And Bernie did admit that he knew that this dirt came from the Russians. And he didn't do anything about it. Now, I would say because he knew his bros would, and he said, I have no control over what people do. So I have to say that part. But he did, say, look, we have to figure out what the hell went on here. There has to be a robust investigation, and people have to suffer the consequences. And it may be that, maybe Bernie did talk to principals in the Hillary campaign, like Hillary herself, because there were knowing glances and a few shoulder pats. And maybe people within the Bernie campaign got turned in some fashion, knowingly or unknowingly, and got weaponized in the process, because that was all part of it as well. I should also say that I usually go by this axiom, what Pussy Riot says, you just kind of listen to them. Now, the leaders, ostensible, because they don't really call themselves leaders, but one that, the tall, dark-haired one.
Yep.
Because I'm not Natalia, I think is her name. Natalie. But the taller one said that we are obsessed with Putin. Democrats are obsessed with Putin. All we're talking is about Vladimir Putin. And rightfully so. She says, Vlad doesn't have any power. People think that he does because he makes it out like he doesn't. And they're being rhetorical and they're correct. But once again, when you're trying to learn American civics within the context of like the Kremlin, they missed a lot of stuff. They needed inside help to know how to weaponize the data that they were able to get. They had no idea how our county election structure is. They had to be told. It's sort of like giving, the nuclear secrets to the Ruskies back in the day. People fried for that. Even if they didn't, they were just, caught up in the hysteria. But regardless. Yeah, well. There's just so much to deconstruct in a week. I'm sorry. Okay, well, you know what? I shouldn't dally on that, because we could spend, hours, and sometimes we do, even when we're not recording, about these issues. So, okay, well, that was the weather from around the world, brought to you by People's Weather Stations from around the world, and a little commentary on geopolitics. Yes, we're visiting with Angie in Washington State today. So I shouldn't be messing around. These are the issues that we will be attending to today, and issues they are indeed. That Montana lawmaker, Giovanni, yeah, that guy, who issued a guilty plea for body slamming that reporter, the British reporter. He's now fighting a court order to be fingerprinted and photographed. Because the laws don't apply to me, only to thee. Where's that thou? Federal government officials canceled a planned meeting between Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg. Do I need to say Facebook founder? If I just say Mark Zuckerberg, people are going to know, right? And he was going to meet with...
Yeah, I think at this point, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, the government officials, you know who we're talking about here. Zinke and others. Canceled a top meeting between Zuckerberg and a top government client researcher to discuss the science behind the rapidly melting ice sheets in Glacier National Park. They've only gone from 200 and some odd glaciers to 12. Or I know, maybe it's 20. But you know what I mean. Yeah. Oh, and the outgoing director of the U.S. Office of Ethics and Government reveals Trump didn't want to sign his own financial disclosure, verifying it was true. Now, I don't know how you and I run business, but, when I was working in real estate, and this is what this guy ostensibly is in real estate. Now, I have to say, doing industrial real estate, which is sort of like, when you're doing it on that level, what he's doing, is a little different than residential. But let's just use residential as an example. I don't know anybody who could get away with getting anything without signing it. I'm not going to sign this verifying it's true. Who does that? I don't know. I can think of some in cinema. about certain kind of organized nefarious activities that deal with the nuclear family. Oh, actually, the extended family and the adopted capos, because they're always attendant, aren't they? I don't know, Wink. Okay, Angie in Washington State will be coming up right after we do the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast Community Calendar, and already there's more. I better get on it. All right, with that guy all the way over there on the East Coast. His name is Wink. This guy back over on the West Coast. My name is Justice, and we do this 5 days a week for an hour-ish in this particular specific and ever peculiar tear on the fabric of space-time, because who loves you, baby? It's true, too. Well. Giafonte. Greg Gianforte. Gianforte. I don't normally go to HuffPost, Wink, but this was a concise little article. And it is by Dana Liebelson. Representative Greg Gianforte, the Montana Republican who pleaded guilty to assaulting a reporter the day before his election, does not want to be treated like a common criminal. Well, of course, he's a very uncommon criminal in his mind.
Exactly.
For more than a month, he has been quietly fighting a court order requiring him to get fingerprinted and photographed at a local jail. Now, apparently he has ALEC and all these other think tanks. Maybe the Federalist Society is in on this. Because they're trying to find some obscure way that's like an invasion of his privacy that, if he gets fingerprinted or something, is going to be, national security issue now. Which I would think if you're going to be dealing with national security, like a congressperson, they're going to fingerprint you and they're going to take your picture. They do that, I don't understand what the issue is here if they're going to go after this privacy issue. Hasn't he already done that to become a Congress critter?
I would think so, yeah.
Jeez. Okay. He was fined $300. Wow. Ordered to pay $85 in court costs and was given a 6-month deferred sentence. Doesn't even have to wear an ankle bracelet. And then he was ordered to perform community service, attend anger management counseling, and appear at the Gallatin County Detention Center to be photographed and fingerprinted. I would think that by him, refusing to show up, that's also violating the anger management thing. I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm not poet, philosopher, king, because I would be judging this thing pretty harshly, just because I could. All right. He hasn't, reporter does say that he's remained silent when asked directly, even by HuffPost reporters and others. What the heck is going on? Well, he did send a letter of apology to the reporter, Ben Jacobs, after initially blaming him for the fight, because you always blame the victim. Don't you? Of course you do. Yep. Well, his critics find his effort to avoid being fingerprinted and photographed at odds with the comment that, come on, we just need to shake hands and move on. Nothing says, let's move on, like, I'm not going to get fingerprinted and photographed. You got the wrong guy. Yeah. All right. I think that he's just resonating with the guy at the top. There are no laws anymore as we know them. Okay? That needs to be clear. I don't know. Beer Hall Putsch doesn't quite. We have to have. I don't know. Would it be like an Applebee's Putsch?
Yeah.
You got to think of something that's like part of a particular subset of the culture, but still everybody. Like NASCAR,
right?
Right. Say something bad about NASCAR, and that's like
yeah.
Might as well been one of the Freedom Riders trying to get black people to vote.
Yep.
Jeez. Nobody ever does that with Formula One.
Nope.
Gee. Come on.
Pretty much NASCAR. Yeah.
Just round and around and around in circles, and that's like the epitome. That's the pinnacle. Oh, God. And what gets me is that, the origination of that whole idea of the muscle car and driving fast would have been more like Formula One, because they had to drive over roads and stuff in these undulating, curves and hillsides and, at great speed, because they're trying to get away from the cops because they're running moonshine.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. Maybe they got too dipping into their own product, and the next thing you know, all they can do is just drive in circle after circle after circle for hours on end. That's a good way to test tires if you only go around in a circle. Sorry about that. I just go off. NASCAR. Winston Cup, while it was still around, at least they had like a road race format.
Yep.
But you would think Formula One, they'd be like deadheads. I mean, say something bad about Jerry, you might as well have been a freedom rider and got chased by some rednecks in Mississippi. I'm serious. To this day.
Yep. Still to
I
this
would
day.
I would think Formula One people would be like deadheads, but they're not. This next article is by Bob Brigham out of Raw Story. Federal government officials canceled a planned Glacier National Park meeting between Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg and a top government researcher. Do you really think that Mark Zuckerberg is going to be like naive about what went on here? He wanted to meet the top researcher, hike around Glacier National Park, basically verify what Zuckerberg already knows. And here's the top climate researcher in the area. But what does Zuckerberg get? A couple of game wardens and, like a park guide dog. Carries around the pamphlets, you can't pull it out, and, you got the maps, plasticine, little information packet and stuff like that. It's almost like, when you would go to Soviet Russia and you'd get a handler. Yeah.
Yep. Well,
it's just like that. That's just me, though, I'm sure. The impacts of climate change upon Glacier National Park are plainly visible, making it difficult for the administration to hide. But they probably think, Trump's like this great CEO, and he's a dimwit. The Zuckerberg guy must be even more of a dimwit, because he's way more successful than our guy, and our guy's like, oh, God, he's God. Jesus. Oh, what I wanted to say about Pussy Riot saying that we're obsessed with Putin and all that. And at the expense of, us, apparently everything else, is that they got their civics lessons in the Kremlin. And they haven't figured out how to weaponize this whole issue, because it's not Putin that we are obsessed with. It's the recognition that Putin is also probably a pawn in a much bigger nefarious operation. Because you never put the people who are in real power out front. They're the talent. The producers are the ones with the real power. Come on.
Yep.
And that's what we've tapped into, and that's who Mueller and others are going after. In fact, Mueller is investigating the people that did not show up to that meeting at Don Jr.'s place, because that's a lot easier. I mean, we're up to 9 now if you count Vlad.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
Jesus. All right. Just saying. Oh, the research ecologist there at Glacier National, Don Fargre, was canceled abruptly 3 days prior to Zuckerberg's arrival. And he said, I was told I'm not participating. And of course, that already had, packets going back and forth between Zuckerberg's people and, the area's people, that kind of thing. And I guess Zinke and others got wind of it and said, no, are you kidding me? We need a Russian handler. Okay, Schaub, of course, is the outgoing ethics director. And remember when he was trolling? Maybe you don't remember this, Wink, but there was the social media account of the ethics department had never issued any kind of anything. It was a placeholder. It was just there, right? And Trump came in, and then suddenly it came alive. And people were shocked. What's going on here? And, of course, that's, Schaub was essentially trolling the new selected guy to be in the White House over his ethics, lack thereof. And this is an article by Sarah K. Burris, the great Sarah K. Burris, often heard on Irreverent Testimony. That's on the weekend here on Netroots Radio. Check it out. Wednesday marks the first day the former director of the U.S. Office of Ethics and Government is living as a non-governmental employee. That would be today. He's not only outgoing, he's gone. Walter Schaub began the day with a CNN interview in which he disclosed the shocking ways that Donald Trump's administration has managed to circumvent ethics rules. He disclosed that the last 8 months have been difficult since he began working with the Trump transition team after the November 2016 election. There's been a departure from the ethical norms that have really held our ethics program together all these years. In one of the many ghostwritten books that Trump has out there, art of the steal. I don't know. Maybe they're all should be under the umbrella of art of the steal. Okay, but he has this ghostwriter tell this saccharine story about how important a handshake is. It's more important than even signing your own financial disclosure verifying it's true, right? Because a handshake is your word, and in fact, at least in residential real estate, the idea of the handshake, and actually the signing is considered to be a handshake because that personified that whole idea of what it meant to live by your word, right? So I just love the fact that here's this guy, he says, my word is my word, but I'm not going to sign it. What do you take me for? Some sort of crook? Are you calling me a crook? And then he just gets all Joe Pesci on people. You think I'm funny? Do you think I'm a little baby? Yeah, we do. Okay, well, these things went on, and he essentially, he does admit that the Trump transition team, even their lawyers, seem fairly clueless about just the basics of how government works. I wonder why that is. Well, probably because they didn't expect to win. But they went with it. All right, let's get to our Jim Hightower break. We'll come back and go through the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast community calendar. Hey, it's run by Jotter today. Yeah, the great Jotter. All right, and then we'll have our discussion with Angie in Washington State, Angela Marx. You are listening to the After Show on Netroots Radio with Wink and Justice, and we will be right back.
Where are Charlie and Dave, Mrs. Koch's two mischievous boys? The Koch brothers have stayed out of the national limelight recently, but they're still trying to supplant American democracy with their little laissez-faire land plutocracy. In fact, in late June, they held a meeting of the Koch Boys Billionaires Club, gathering about 400 other uber-wealthy rascals to plot some political hijinks for next year's elections. The club meets every year at some luxury hideaway, and its attendees have to pay $100,000 each just to get in. But participants also are expected to give generously to the brothers' goal of spending $400 million to buy a slew of Congress critters, governors, and others in 2018. This year, the group gathered in Colorado Springs at the ultra-luxe Broadmoor Hotel and Resort, owned by the brothers' billionaire pal and right-wing co-conspirator Philip Anschutz. Among the recent political triumphs that these elites celebrated in the Broadmoor's posh ballroom was the defeat this year of the Colorado tax hike to fix the state's crumbling roads. After all, who needs adequate roads when you can arrive in private jets? This attitude of the Koch's privileged cohorts explains why the public is shut out of these candid sessions. A staffer for the Koch confab hails such no-tax, no-roads policies as a renaissance of freedom. For the privileged, that is, freedom to prosper at the expense of everyone else. This is Jim Hightower saying, indeed, their agenda includes killing such working-class needs as minimum wage and Social Security and privatizing everything from health care to public education. In fact, the ultimate intention of this self-absorbed cabal of spoiled plutocratic brats is nothing less than to abandon our nation's core democratic principle of we're all in this together. If they kill that uniting concept, they'll kill America itself.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Okay, we're back.
And indeed, we are back. And thank you for sticking with us. This is the After Show with Wink and Justice. Justice here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the West Coast. Wink is in upstate New York 21 on the East Coast. Angie in Washington State is... I always like to think you're near the Columbia River Gorge. Am I correct, Angie?
I'm on the banks of the Columbia River, actually.
Well, can't get any closer than that. My bird-like internal GPS continues.
Yeah.
And our crew are the ethereal creatures who reside in the cloud. Not the clouds, but the cloud. And whose advanced intergalactic technical abilities allow Netroots Radio and this by extension the After Show to span the globe, the solar system, and beyond. And, though they have intergalactic technical abilities, they're the good kind. Not the bad aliens come here to suck us dry and then go somewhere else like grasshoppers.
Right.
All right, today's Connect, Unite, Act Daily Co's community calendar diary, as I intimated earlier, is facilitated by Jotter. I love Jotter. He's a good guy. And Forrester Bob's getting a little bit of a vacation because he is, after all, Forrester Bob. And his vacation probably means work. And Jotter has a great pictorial essay about rivers and whitewater rafting and being a river rat. And are you a river rat? Do you have a river near you, Wink?
About 2 blocks away, in fact. Yep.
Well, there you go. Okay,
Yep.
You got river culture in your veins, too.
Yep.
All right. No, from living in the Bay Area for so long, the Bay and the ocean, and I was part of the sailing culture there. It's decidedly different than river culture. And I have to admit, the river culture was more of my boyhood. And I think it's like riding a bike,
Well, it
Hop
depends
right
on what
back
you
on.
call a river, too. You have to consider that there are areas of the country where what I might consider a creek,
Yeah,
other people
exactly.
might consider a stream or a river.
The Rogue River to me in many ways is, and that's what my mom calls creeks.
Yeah.
So you know, yeah, because she comes from that part of the country too.
Yeah,
that's where she comes from. From all that area: Montana, Idaho, Washington.
Yeah,
They're
well,
cracks.
I got my mother's folks are all here in Southwest Washington, but they came a generation before that from Norway, and my dad's family is all from Wisconsin, but his dad came from Tennessee, and his ancestors came from Germany and Norway. So
we used to visit an aunt, a great aunt who had been educated east, and I remember like some other relative, like maybe another great aunt, or I don't know, some relative who said that we were. She lived on the tributary to the Snake River, and we were going to visit the aunt who plays the piano next to the creek.
The piano.
The piano next to the creek.
Yeah.
You say potato, I say potato. It's like that.
Yeah. Yep.
I remember thinking right then and there, I don't know. I think maybe I better get really deep into this book on syntax. So, and I did. Okay, I should mention real quickly the Connect Unite Act events coming up. Caffeinating Liberally in Denver Coast holds their usual fourth Saturday of the month meeting at Common Grounds Coffee Shop. This month will be July 22nd, and that's located at 44th and Vallejo from 9 to noonish. Virginia Cossacks are going to be are invited to Dr. Lori's and Gordon 224's place in the Shenandoah Valley. And she has a farm there, and they're going to have a big meetup Saturday, July 22nd at 2 p.m. So Cosmail Dr. Lori to RSVP for that if you're in the area. Netroots Nation, the red carpet of Netroots Nation is the night before, of course, and that's the Daily Co's Cheers and Jeers annual dinner, Wednesday, August 9th at 5:30 p.m. at White Oak Kitchen and Cocktails, 270 Peachtree Street, Atlanta, Georgia. Cosmail Navajo to RSVP. Oh my gosh. And let's see. I'm sorry. My down arrow doesn't work, so I'm doing something stupidly to get it to scroll. Okay, and then the Daily Co's Caucus will have their Ask Me Anything About Daily Co's. There are a slew of people, and they're all familiar names, of course, and it will be led by Nita Lind. We know her as Navajo.
Yeah.
And also Will Rockefeller they'll be teaming up to direct that. So check that out. And August 12th, the Daily Co's Asheville Summer Summit Meetup will be at Mount Mitchell State Park, 2388 State Highway 128, Burnsville, North Carolina. Cosmail Randall to attend. And that is your Connect Unite Act Daily Co's community calendar for the 19th of July.
Yeah.
Of 2017. We are deep into summer. Oh man. So are your fruit trees starting to happen yet? Angie?
I don't have fruit. I don't have fruit trees.
Well, how about just in the area? I mean, are apples, any pears, any cherries starting to do their thing? Or?
You know, I haven't been anywhere to look at fruit trees. But that river rat thing, that was so funny when you started talking about that, because growing up here, one of the high schools here, one of the three high schools in our town, was named Columbia River. And of course, I went to Hudson Bay, and so we called them river rats.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That's about 40 years back.
we were taught to swim probably before we were taught to walk or could walk. And I worked for the local Y when I was in high school. We taught 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds to swim.
Yeah, so I taught my girls to swim really early too, but I didn't learn to swim till I was older because I was terrified of the water because I nearly drowned twice. I mean, when I was like 8 years old or 9 years old, we were at State Park, and a whole bunch of us, my mom's family and uncles and my dad and my sisters, we were on this big wooden raft that they had built out of timber logs out of Battleground State Park, and it was like a 20-foot square raft, like to float on to fish out of the lake in, right? And my sister and I are running around this corner where there's a little hole, and I fell through the hole, and one of my cousins had to dive down into that raft, and fetch me out. I was darn near gone for it. And then,
oh my gosh,
2 years later, the same cousin at his parents' house, behind their house was a apartment building that had put in a swimming pool, and they bought part of the property from my aunt and uncle, so they gave them the right to use the pool, right? Their kids could use the pool. So we're in there, and I still can't swim, and I'm holding on to like a baseball, or not a baseball, basketball, and I lost the basketball in the scum of people splashing around, and I'm down at the bottom of the pool. That same cousin had to dive in and pull me out.
See, that's what cousins are for.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that would have a long time imprinting.
Yeah. Thank you, Donald Lingle, for saving my life twice.
Yikes. No, I remember growing up. I mean, just the cycle of life. Every season there'd be a kid drowned or whatever, and so yeah, there was still care taken. We weren't allowed. I remember we weren't allowed to go into swift water for quite a while. But I was one of these kids that never had any fear. The big thing around where I lived up more towards Eugene and east of the Cascades there along the Willamette and the Mackenzie is that now looking back, my parents were in their mid-20s, essentially they were kids, but the big thing was to go to the local train trellises and jump off it into, the river below. And some of these train trellises are quite high. And as a young kid, I was up there with these young adults, and I got in trouble for it a few times because it didn't happen just once. But I would jump off the train trellis too at like 4 years old, 5 years old. What the hell?
Yeah, we have that out here in Clark County too. Out in some of the more rural parts, the northern parts of the county, there's some train trellises over the Lewis River that comes out of the 3 big water reservoirs that we have up here in the North County. And there's one. It's like a 35 to 50 foot drop off the train trellis to the water. And that water, once you hit the water, it is so cold that it just takes your breath away and freezes your lungs.
Yep, that's what happens. I remember actually when my son was a toddler, we would go to these train trellises that we would go to when I was a kid. And I crawled up there and I said, no way, I'm not jumping off this. I was like, 24, 25 at the time. I said, what the hell was I thinking of, man? They gave me a better assessment of, the men and women in my family who just routinely did it for fun. I went up there and go, man, this is way too high.
Yeah, but when you're like 12, 14, 16 years old, you look at the world with different eyes than you do after you're in your mid-20s to 30s because, nothing, well, for most people, let's say, nothing really truly bad has happened to you yet. I mean, my view of people is kind of like you're not really an adult until life has hit you really hard a couple times and you have woken up to the reality of the world, which is that life is precious. Oftentimes it is short, and you need to be careful with yours.
Exactly. The big cultural determinant also that would occur here is every winter, and this would happen when I was just a little kid. It's like every winter, it seemed like the high school kids up to like 22 have to drive up into the Cascades in the most severe snowstorm, get totally drunk, and then drive off the mountain. Every season.
Drive off. Really?
and so there'd be these like terrible mourning winters, everybody's in mourning all winter because, a group of kids drove up the mountain in the severe
somebody died,
got drunk and drove off the mountain. And I thought, well, they didn't call it the Darwin Awards then, but I kind of thought as a kid well, do you really want that in the gene pool anyway? I don't know. But I do remember growing up thinking, when I drive, I'm not going up there in the dead of winter with anybody.
I'm not going up there yet. That reminds me when I was just out of high school and here in Vancouver, Washington, the teenagers would all collect in the downtown loop and cruise the gut between the Dairy Queen and the Burgerville. The Dairy Queen was at the north end, the Burgerville was at the south end. And the cops wanted to chase those kids out of there all the time. And even as a 17-year-old, I was thinking to myself, why do they want to do that? I know that people are annoyed by the cars running for 4 hours on Friday and Saturday night, but This way, the cops have all of the teenagers in one geographical area in the county where they can keep an eye on them. If they chase them out of downtown, all these kids in these hopped-up cars are going to be crashing into trees and dying. And sure enough, after they banned cruising here for the next 10 years, regularly in the summertime, you would see a carload of teenagers drunk, bashed into a tree with somebody dead. It didn't make it. They should have just kept them contained in that area and kept, I didn't understand that behavior.
I remember third grade going to visit my mom's cousins, her first cousins up in Battleground. And one of the older cousins, he must have been 18 or 19, but he was like ancient to me. But he had a hot rod. And we went cruising through Battleground on their regular cruising night. And the cops were part of the whole entourage. So I just thought, so it was a little bit shocking.
We learned something from those idiots in Vancouver.
Yeah, I guess. And so I have no idea about like that motor cruise that kids always do every summer on, I don't know, what is it, Friday and Saturday nights? That was the traditional time.
Well, generations older than ours, like my parents grew up in the 40s. Older generations, they held open public events every weekend so they could keep track of where their young people were. They had dances and potlucks, and people today might look on that as quaint behavior of people, but no, that was actually social, what's the word I'm looking for? Social
norms or restrictions?
Well, it was kind of a community building kind of a behavior because they didn't chase their kids out to do God knows what in the dead of night in a 2,000-pound rolling steel can and alcohol. Right. They made things happen so that their young people had activities that could be done where the wider community could keep an eye on them, which is a lot smarter than what we do today, which is give our kids, automobile driver's ed and the ability to get in a death machine and, cruise around the countryside.
Well, I always thought, it's funny you mentioned that because I always considered the drive-in as a way to pen a bunch of rebellious, unruly kids. There's only one way in and one way out. You got them inside and you got them, give them refreshments.
We used to love the drive-in.
Then a few hours go by and everybody wants to go home. Can't wait to get home. I used to love the drive-in too. We lived by a drive-in for a little bit when I was a young kid, and I was enamored with it. So even more so than what we called movie palaces. And then I became more of a movie palace guy. But I used to love the drive-in.
I thought, well, we had a drive-in like 8 minutes away from my house growing up in Hazeldale, so we went there all the time, and we saw movies like The Green Slime and
we would have like barbecues next to the car, and actually we would park in the back. We'd have the truck, and we'd park the truck so that you were having a bed facing. Then you'd set up your barbecue, and you'd have a picnic or whatever. And it was great fun, and we always watched the monster movies then. So,
well, the one in Hazeldale had a little kids entertainment area right up front, up on the screen. A little merry-go-round, a swing set. So people would bring their kids. My parents took us to the drive-in in our PJs.
Right.
My dad popped a big brown paper bag, grocery bag full of popcorn. There were 4 of us kids and my parents, but, as I recall, we ate that popcorn at those movies, and that was a big bag of popcorn.
Those were great times.
Thinking back on it, that's a lot of popcorn, but, different era. My dad used to take us over to Portland to watch the airplanes take off and land. That was entertainment in the 1960s.
Yeah, we live in Springfield, Eugene area. The local airport was not too far. I mean, within blocks of one place that we lived in near town. And that was entertainment. I mean, actually, the entertainment was going to A&W, getting a teen burger and a root beer float, and coming back and watching the planes take off and land. There's
nothing better than a frosty cold root beer float at the A&W. They put those big mugs in the freezer. Oh, those were so delicious.
Those were classics. Yep. Yeah. And ours were true car hops. They came out on skates and the whole deal. Yeah.
we never had the skaters out here, but there were a lot of A&Ws here in town when I was a kid, and they're all gone now. Did they go out of business, or?
They still have their bottling operations, so you see the brand, but maybe there's an A&W left in the Bay Area or something, but I haven't seen one up here. The one that we used to go to in Springfield, Eugene, is like a tire store or something now. So it's just really weird.
There is nothing like a cold, frosty mug of root beer on a hot summer day when you're a kid, man.
It's one of the best. Hey, well, do you think that what some people call Trump care, other people call treason care, is dead? It's dead. Let it die.
No, actually, I was seeing my story I wrote yesterday is still up on the rec list on Daily Coast. I'm surprised to see that, but my personal view is that they are not going to let go of that bunny, and they're going to keep going after it this entire year. I predict that we are going to see them do nothing but chase this around all year long, except 3 days in late September, when they will pass a continuing resolution, because they not only don't have the votes for that health care nonsense, because they're crazy, I guess. So 3 days, look for 3 days in late September when they're going to pass a continuing resolution, because they don't have the votes for a budget bill, and they're not going to let go of that. The problem is they're at a catch-22 position. It doesn't matter if they don't have the votes endlessly. They're going to keep coming back for it, because all they have run on for 8 entire years is kill Obamacare. That's how they took all those seats in the last 8 years. That's how they jazz up all the crazy people on the right who think that it's the government trying to kill you instead of the government making sure that you could see a doctor when you're sick. And I'm not looking for any sanity on the side of the Republicans. They're just too crazy and insistent on this, and I think it's because, like the story I wrote, which I called, I finally figured out why the GOP is so insistent on repeal of Obamacare, is because they only see themselves as doing well when they're winners. Do you hear Donald Trump saying winners all the time?
Yeah.
Their entire ideology is full of this concept of being winners. There's winners and losers in life, and they cannot be losers, and so they cannot give up this healthcare business, because until they get it passed, they're losers.
Well, it's curious that there's a lot of doctors who seem to be against Obamacare that are in office. Well, it's not so curious. They're high-charging orthopedists, and they tend to be the most conservative in the demographic. But I heard one yesterday, and I totally forget his name. He's been on Chris Hayes' show a few times, but he was pinned down a couple of times, and finally by Chris Matthews. And the guy said, the reason we're against healthcare, or I'm against healthcare, is that these patients are not entitled to the fruits of my labor. And I'm thinking, right. What makes a doctor think that they're entitled to the fruits of my labor? I mean, don't we have a social contract here? It just and I also thought doctors, treated people whether they got paid or not, because it was part of the Hippocratic Oath. You'll figure it out later, right? I mean, the first rule is do no harm. And by saying, well, I'll only set your leg if you pay me, is doing harm, right? So,
well, you got to look at it like this. In our country, there are only 2 industries that are outside the auspices of antitrust legislation. That is Major League Baseball and medical services. There's no regulation on pricing, right? That's why you can go into one town and get an MRI, and there's probably 500 places, literally 500 places you get an MRI in a metropolitan area. And the cost for that service will be anywhere from $400 to $8,000. And you as a consumer have absolutely no ability to find the best price. Because one, you can only go to a place that your insurance will pay for. So even if you found the best price place, it's probably out of your network. These guys on the right and healthcare, the problem is they see it as a product or a service. We can't look at it like that until our federal government is willing to regulate the pricing and cost of medical services and materials. That means doctors, hospitals, clinics, pharmacies, the medical, the durable medical equipment. If they won't put price controls and regulation on the cost of these things, we'll never get control of this out of control, ever increasing cost of healthcare. It's not just the insurance. It's the unregulated medical industry in our country. Yes, I know doctors spend an awful lot of money going to medical school. They're in debt for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, you know what? That's the other side. That's the other side of the stupid in our country. Exactly. How about the government provide medical education to anybody who's able to pass the right test, their MCATs? You get a decent enough score, you get a free ride, and you spend 3 years working in a public hospital or clinic at a lower rate of pay.
Area somewhere.
And then you have no debt, and you don't have to charge $100,000 to do That's the other thing. The most costly things in this country are really expensive surgeries, and those are mostly cardiac and neurological surgeries because it takes a lot of years and a lot of training to get good at that. But I have to tell you, the bill for a cardiac surgeon or a neurosurgery can be as high as $60,000 just for one doctor for less than a day's work. I'm sorry, there's no education in the world that makes your labor worth that. And on that note, we have a minimum wage in this country. Why is it not possible to have a maximum wage and take in taxes all the rest of the money somebody earns if they make, like CEOs make $86,000 a minute, some of them?
Now, I know it's wrong to, set the answer for a theory, but from anecdotal surveys that I've taken, the more conservative the doctor, the more anti-Obamacare or whatnot, the more malpractice suits they have filed against them, the higher their malpractice premium is. And I personally, as a potential patient, I like the idea that there's some regulations on quacks. And what I keep hearing from the other side is that quacks have rights to practice their business too. And I'm thinking, no.
Okay, that's fine. But how come, doctors should have to publicly display their cost of their malpractice insurance because the rate of your malpractice insurance reflects your personal history as a physician. If you have a lot of malpractice suits against you, you pay a lot higher rates. If patients could see what their malpractice rates were, they could tell whether they were a good or bad doctor.
Well, I don't know.
One that has a lot of lawsuits, come on.
This isn't universal, but restaurants have to post their health code rating.
That's right.
And people can decide, well, maybe I don't want to go into one that's rated 72%.
That's right.
And there's a lot of people that fight that because, well, it's just because I had rats in my kitchen doesn't mean our food's bad. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's the Republicans want us to treat healthcare like any other business.
Right.
And that's the problem. It's not like any other business because no other business in the country decides whether you live or die. As part of the business.
I've heard the argument against being sort of what some people have called it conscripted. You go through medical school and then you're conscripted for a certain amount of time, maybe 3 years. Well, to me, I don't see how different that is than, it wouldn't be a hard track to take. Because the idea
there's plumbers, carpenters, electricians all have to spend 2 years in an apprenticeship.
Within the own medical industry, within the own construct, the idea of internships, and you put in a certain amount of time at one hospital here, and then you go to another. Well, why don't we just formalize it and distribute people in a much more efficient way? It's the same thing as doing an internship at Chicago Hope or something. So.
Yep.
But
right. Yep.
What doctors
some people are looking for their specialty and they don't want to be trapped in general practice for too long, and that's their argument, and I think it's wrong.
Well, it's a crazy kind of a process for doctors. They do their residency, and in the last year of their residency, they get a match, which means that all the hospitals in the nation and the bigger practices that participate in the match service, they have job openings, and they go through all the residents' information, and they choose residents. When a resident gets a match, that's where they go to work the next 2 to 4 years. They don't really have any choice in it because if they want to work, they have to go where they're taken.
I haven't heard the argument against that. I mean, it's part of the culture.
Yeah.
And so when I hear these arguments from some libertarian types that go, well, I don't want to have to go to, bump F wherever in the middle of nowhere.
Then you should have picked a different kind of a career, buddy.
Exactly.
It's like pharmacists who don't want to distribute the morning after pill. Well, dude, if you don't want to give that kind of medication out, get a different job.
Exactly.
That's,
I don't believe
that's
it.
my point. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Okay, thanks, Angie. We'll pick this up again next week.
By next week, it'll be crazy Mr. Trump again, I'm sure.
Yes, it will be. All right, folks. We are bugging out of here. Let's see. We'll have La Buena Vida's Trio Limpio playing in the interim before Hartman coming up at about 6 minutes after the hour. Randy Rhodes had a bit of a technical issue yesterday, and I think they ferreted it out. It was a Windows update they weren't expecting, an unexpected Windows update. So turn those auto updates off.
Yep.
Isn't it?
Yep.
Even Randy gets caught by it. My God. Week will be on tonight for Jibber Your Jabber, a 2-hour opportunity for live call-in radio, 9 p.m. on the West Coast, midnight on the East Coast, and I don't know, sometimes Angie calls in, so you might get surprised.
If I can stay awake long enough, I'll try to call in, and if you guys send a tweet out about Wing's call-in show tonight, I will be happy to share that.
Sure enough, no problem at all.
All right. Yep. Well, folks, once again, we better bug out of here, and stay tuned to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365, and why? Well, because who loves you, baby? Okay, Wink, I will see you on the other side.
All right. We're out.